Hello, future engineers, subscribers, viewers, and students. Here is a video in plane and analytic geometry 1 in my playlist. And in this video, I'm going to discuss preliminaries about plane and solid analytic geometry, particularly the first part. So we'll discuss here about points, lines, then mid-distance formula, applying Pythagoras theorem, and other principles about lines. So division of a line segment, angle of inclination, angle formed between two lines, area by coordinates, and equation of the locus. So these are the main topics to be presented here. So let's have points in a plane. The plane is divided into 4 quadrants, and you know that already. The In the first quadrant, all points have positive coordinates. In the second quadrant, the x-coordinate or the abscissas have negative coordinate. The y-coordinate is positive. The intersection between these axes that divide the plane into 4 parts is called the origin. Then in quadrant 3, all coordinates are negative. Quadrant 4, the abscissas, the horizontal coordinate is horizontal coordinates are positive, the vertical coordinates negative. So if we have in quadrant 1, we have this point here, the distance from the y-axis, vertical axis, is called the abscissa, and from the x-axis, it's called the ordinate. Then we have distance between 2 points, so let's consider 2 points on the plane, so call that x2, y2, and this one x1, y1. Then we connect the two with a straight line. The distance is denoted by d. In order to have the legs of these right triangles to be positive, it should be right x coordinate, in this case x sub 2 minus left x coordinate x sub 1, while the vertical distance to make it positive, upper y, y2 minus lower y, y1. And the slope it makes with the horizontal, or the angle it makes with the horizontal, is denoted by theta, the angle of inclination, and it should be base from the horizontal positive axis, and the standard measurement is positive counterclockwise, just like in trigonometry. So that's x2 minus y2, y sub 2 minus y1, and by Pythagoras theorem, distance is square root of quantity x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared, though it doesn't matter if the terms are arranged in this manner or they are in opposite sense, because we're going to square it, but it is a good practice to write it that way so that this is automatic, the formula to be positive. If this negative is really in negative, and this is the horizontal, right minus left, then for vertical, upper minus lower. So call that the angle inclination theta. So distance by Pythagoras theorem, given by that. Then slope of a line. So slope is denoted by m, and it is the tangent of the angle it makes with horizontal, and the standard direction, just like in trigonometry, is counterclockwise as shown. So tangent theta is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Next, division of a line segment. You don't need to memorize this because a line to be divided, bounded by endpoints, is straight. So we can use the principle of similar triangles here. So for instance, in this coordinate system, we have these 2 points, and we have P1, X1, Y1, P sub 2, X2, Y2, and we have this, the division point of division with coordinates XD, YD. Then let us say this part P1 to D is R1 and from point D to P2 as R sub 2. So that's R sub 1, then R sub 2. We just follow the suggested determination of the X, delta X and delta Y so that you won't be confused. So for instance, this one is, we have P sub 1D, P1D to this P sub 2, it is R1 over R2, and it should be XD, the ratio of corresponding horizontal projection or horizontal length, horizontal projection of this line. So XD minus X1, and it is also equal to as to the horizontal projection of this portion of the line, which is X2 minus XD. Similarly, it is also a ratio of the corresponding vertical legs of the portion of the line. In this case, this is YD minus Y1, and this case is Y2 minus YD, containing the suggested calculations of the legs. So P1D over P1P2 equals XD minus X1 over X2 minus XD, X2 minus X1 also. If we obtain the ratio of P1D as to P1P2, then that's would be correspondingly equal to the ratio of their horizontal projections. So horizontal and vertical projections respectively. So this is right XD minus left X1. Then for P1 P2 it is X2 minus X1. Then it is also YD minus Y1, and for P1 P2 Y2 minus Y1. So you don't need to memorize because this is just by similar triangles. Angle of inclination. The angle of inclination is theta, and it has positive slope if it is inclined up to the right, crossing like this one, so that the angle of inclination would be acute, and tangent of an acute angle is positive, like that. So the angle it makes with the positive x-axis, in counterclockwise direction positive, in clockwise direction negative. So slope n is equal to the tangent of that angle. So that has positive slope, inclined up or down to the left, that's positive. If it is inclined down to the right, or up to the left, that's a negative slope. This one is positive because the angle it forms with the positive x-axis in counterclockwise direction is acute, while this one has negative slope because the angle it makes with the positive x-axis, the direction is clockwise, even if the extension. And the second explanation is from the x-axis to the terminal side, it is obtuse angle in the second quadrant, and tangent of an obtuse angle is negative because y is positive in the second quadrant and x is negative in the second quadrant. So it has negative slope, and this one has zero slope. And if the line is vertical, it has meaningless slope, or the slope is undefined. So that's it. So as an example, when the angle it makes with the positive x-axis is more than 90 degrees obtuse, then like 135 degrees, tangent of 135 degrees is -1. Next concept would be angle formed between two lines. So let's consider two lines in the figure shown, call that line 1, and this one as line 2. So line 1, or the initial line, when we base the determination of the angle formed between them, and this is line 2 or line sub t. So this is the angle formed between the two lines from the initial line in counterclockwise direction. So if we measure this, which is equal to that, that's still the same. Terminal, it ends in the terminal line and begins with the initial line in counterclockwise direction. So the angle that line 1 or line initial makes with the positive x-axis is theta I, while L2 or the terminal line is theta t. Then this is the technique. At the point of intersection, draw a horizontal line. That's the angle. So that this is theta t and this one is theta I. So that from the figure, theta is equal to theta sub t minus theta sub I. So theta is theta sub t minus theta sub I. Then if we take tangent to both sides, and remember the expansion of the formula for the difference, tangent of the difference of two angles, which is tangent of, in this case, tangent theta t minus tangent theta I all over 1 plus tangent theta t tangent theta I. So tangent theta equals tangent of theta t minus theta I. So expanding the right side, that's tangent theta t minus tangent theta I all over 1 plus tangent theta t tangent theta I. And we note that tangent theta t is slope of line t, terminal line. This is the slope of initial line. Substitute tangent theta t is mt minus m sub I over 1 plus m sub t m sub I. Then this formula should not be memorized because I have a technique on how to find the angle formed between two lines. It will be presented in the example or later. Thus, for parallel lines, the angle formed would be 0, and tangent of 0 is 0, and the fraction is 0 if the numerator is 0. So as a result, 0 equals mt minus mi over 1 plus mt mi. So the numerator should be 0, and that shows that the slopes are equal. Mt equals m sub I. Likewise, for perpendicular lines, theta is 90 degrees, and tangent of 90 degrees is undefined. Take note of that. So for a fraction to be undefined, the denominator should be 0. So with equating the denominator to 0 and interpreting the result, it means that the product of the slopes is -1 for perpendicular lines, or the slope of one is the negative reciprocal of the other. Area by coordinates. So if we have here the plane and we have points on the plane, so let's limit it to just 3 points, although this formula, the derivation is applicable to any number of points. It may be a closed polygon of any sides or any corners. So for that case, the arrangement should be in counterclockwise manner. It shouldn't be that the point in the first quadrant be the first point. Any point you can start. It may be this one as x1 of y1, then this would be x to y2, as long as we arrange that in counterclockwise direction, because counterclockwise direction is positive in analytic geometry, plane geometry, and we also have right hand rule, so that would be counterclockwise. Right hand rule in statics or in physics. Then this area is bounded by area of rectangle. You can simply set up that, then less these right triangles, 3 right triangles in terms of the coordinates. The dimensions would be in terms of the coordinates. Like for instance, this is x3 minus x2, y1 minus y3, x1 minus x2, right minus left, remember, and this is x3 minus x1. This is y1 minus y2. That's x3 minus x1. y1 minus y2. and this one is y2 minus y3. So then the area is quantity x3 minus x2 times y1 minus y3 minus 1/2 of quantity x3 minus x1 times y1 minus y3 minus 1/2 of quantity x1 minus x2 times quantity y1 minus y2 minus 1/2 of quantity x3 minus x2 times y2 minus y3. The result would be, in general, the area of the closed polygon. So you arrange the points in this manner counterclockwise. So we have 1/2 quantity, or this quantity, in case you forget, is treat this as absolute value bars. You might forget and you might arrange the points in clockwise manner. This will give negative area, but to remind you that the arrangement should be counterclockwise, you just interpret this as absolute value bars. So this is the first point, x1, y1, x2, y2, x3, y3, x4, y4, until the last point, xn, yn, and close the figure by writing the coordinates of the first point, x1, y1. Then the product, just like evaluating determinant in advanced math in matrix subject, positive in that direction. So x1, y2 plus x2, y3, and so on and so forth. Then minus in that direction, x2, y1 minus x3, y2 minus x4, y3, and so on. And for those who already underwent this subject, know this already. So note, points must be arranged in counterclockwise manner. Midpoint formula, so of course, from the point of division idea there, because we have midpoint formula, it is the center, so we can easily derive or show that x sub m is 1/2 of quantity x1 plus x2. You can easily verify this using the point of division concept earlier. Then yn is 1/2 of quantity y1 plus y2. Likewise, the centroid of a triangle, if you want the proof of this, you just look at the proof in my Vitamath playlist in Vitamath. You can find there the derivation. But in this case, applicable only for triangles. If it is quadrilateral, I suggest that you divide it into triangles, and in each triangle there is that centroid formula. And for the entire figure, you apply Varignon's theorem in locating the centroid. So applicable only for triangles. X sub c is 1/3 of quantity x1 plus x2 plus x3, so it's still average. And y sub c is 1/3 of quantity y1 plus y2 plus y3. Again, the derivation of this is in my Vitamath playlist, and this location of center has common sense. It's like average, just like the midpoint formula. And remember that this is only for triangles. If it is a quadrilateral, do not invent that this is 1/4 of x1 plus x2 plus x3 plus x4, same is true with y1. Only for triangles. Then for any closed polygon, plain closed polygon, you divide it into a number of triangles. Then in each triangle, we have that centroid formula, and apply area by coordinates for the area, and apply Varignon's theorem for the location of the centroid of the entire plane figure. Next, it's about equation of the locus. Locus means path of a point which moves and constrained according to certain law in mathematics. And this is also English comprehension. And this is used in deriving equations of curves, conics, for example. So we're going to find the equation of the locus of a point constrained to move according to certain law. So you just draw a curve, arbitrary curve. Then as long as you follow, you can interpret, translate the law, then algebraically, then you can definitely, surely find the equation of the locus. But it is also a good practice to familiar with the different loci that you will encounter or will deal with in plane analytic geometry. So we have a point there, x comma y, and that's the locus. First locus would be the locus of a straight line, and we define a straight line as the shortest distance between 2 points, or it is a curve whose slope is constant, or the line may just be called a line. When a line has endpoints, then it is called a line segment. Then if there is only one point and the other point is free, then it is a directed line segment. So that's the definition. A line may also be defined as the curve locus with slope is constant. It may also be defined as a curve whose radius is infinite, because if we have a straight line, the radius is infinite. The general equation of first degree is also the general equation of a line, and it is ax plus by plus c equals 0. So first degree, ax to the 1 plus by to the 1 plus c equals 0. So that's the first degree equation, and it is the general equation of a line. There are standard forms of equations of a line that will be discussed as we move on. So we have here a line in general, assuming that's the inclination, direction, ax plus by plus c equals 0. Then it intersects with the y-axis where x is 0. So if x is 0, this term is 0, then y equals negative c over b. So this is y equals constant, and it is negative c over b. Likewise, the line intersects the x-axis at this point. This is called the x-intercept, and the y-intercept is this distance, and it is negative c over b. It doesn't mean that it's negative, although it's above the x-axis. The constant c may be negative, so that negative is positive, or it may be the constant b that is negative, so that negative or positive divided by negative is positive. So don't mind of that. That's only the generalization. It will tell us the correct sign in general. So this vertical line, the horizontal line has equation y equals negative c over b, and we interpret negative c over b as the y-intercept, the y-coordinate of on the y-axis where this line intersects. Likewise, this is the line where the point here have 0 y-coordinate. Like here, the x-coordinate is 0. So in this general equation, if y is 0, this is 0, so ax plus c equals 0, or x equals negative c over a. So the general formula for the x-intercept a, this small a here, is negative c over a. So that's negative c over a. So that's also negative c over a. Then standard forms of equation of a straight line. The first one is the 2-point form, and we can easily derive this because there are 2 points, and remember, 2 points determine a line. We can find the slope, and we denote a point on the line with coordinates that is free to move, coordinates x comma y. So there must be 2 conditions to determine the equation of a line. So let us say that's x1, y1, x2, y2, and any point that is moving, constrained to move along the straight path, as coordinate x comma y, and the slope is constant. So we have y minus y1 over x minus x1 equals the slope of the line bounded by x1, y1 and x2, y2, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Where in fact you don't need to memorize this as long as you know the slope. So y2 minus y1, and here we have x2, x minus x1, and y minus y1. And it may also be the other way, x1 minus x, y1 minus y, x1 minus x2, then y1 minus y2. It doesn't matter, but it's a good practice to do it this way, where we follow right x minus left x for the horizontal projection, and upper minus lower for the vertical projection. So y minus y1 over x minus x1 equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and we interpret this as the slope. So that's the 2-point form. It may also be y minus y2 over x minus x2 equals y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. But again, do not memorize. Then we have the point slope form. So it means one point is known, coordinates, and the slope is known. So since this is the 2-point form, if we replace that by slope m, then that becomes point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times quantity x minus x1. So that is the result. Y minus y1 equals slope times x minus x1. So we have a point x1, y1, let us say, then that's x comma y. The slope of that line joining them is m. So y minus y1 over x minus x1 equals m. So y minus y1 equals slope times quantity x minus x1. So the third standard form is the slope-intercept form. It is both ways. It may be the x-intercept or the y-intercept, but I think you're familiar that it is the y-intercept that is usually used in this slope-intercept form. But I will give you the other slope-intercept form this time in terms of the x-intercept. So that requires that the slope and the y-intercept must be even to determine the equation of the line. So from here, let us do this demonstration. So 0 comma b, call that 0.1, and the slope is m. So substitute here from point slope form. So we have 0 comma b as the coordinate on the y-axis, where b is the y-intercept. So y minus b over x minus 0 is m, or y minus b is m times quantity x minus 0. So the slope-intercept form in terms of the y-intercept b is y equals mx plus b. And I think you're familiar with that. Likewise, if it is the x-intercept, which is here, a comma 0, then y minus 0 over x minus a equals slope. So y equals m times quantity x minus a. So it's more compact in terms of the x-intercept. Y equals slope, quantity x minus a. So that's the slope-intercept form in terms of the x-intercept. So from the general form of equation of a line, ax plus by plus c equals 0, if we transform this into that form there, then y equals negative ax over b minus c over b rather. So y equals negative a over bx minus c over b. So that means the slope of the line is in general, from the general form, it's negative a over b, and the y-intercept is indeed negative c over b. Then this one, if transformed, then we can say that the x-intercept A is negative C over A. So that's your job to transform this slope-intercept form in terms of the x-intercept and compare with the general equation of the line. You can find that the x-intercept is negative C over B. The next standard form is the intercept form, and normally this is used to sketch the line. Although the other form may be used to sketch especially the slope-intercept form or simply the two-point form, wherein you just set x equals 0, solve for y, the y-intercept rather, and you set y equals 0, then you can solve the x-intercept. But this is the intercept form in general for sketching purposes. So the x and y intercept must be known, and it reduces to two-point form because this is 0, comma b, and this is a, comma 0. And we again equate the slope, that's x, comma y, that's b. So from two-point form, y minus b over x minus 0 equals b minus a over 0 minus a. So simplifying, cross multiply, negative ay plus ab equals bx. Then bx plus ay equals ab. Divide everything by ab, so we have x over a plus y over b equals 1. That's the intercept form, where a is the x-intercept, b the y-intercept, and remember their values from the general form, negative c over a, x-intercept, negative c over b for the y-intercept. From the general form, ax plus by plus c equals 0. So transpose c to the right, ax plus by equals negative c. Then we have ax over negative c. Divide everything by negative c plus by over negative c equals 1, so because the right side is 1. And rearrange this as x over negative c over a plus y over negative c over b equals 1, and that shows that a x-intercept is indeed negative c over a, and the y-intercept is indeed negative c over b. Then the conditions for parallel lines. For parallel lines, then their slopes must be equal from the results earlier. The two lines a1x plus b1y plus c1 equals 0 and a2x plus b2y plus c2 equals 0 are parallel if their slopes are equal. Since slopes in general is the negative coefficient of x divided by coefficient of y, so for first line, negative a1 over b1, and for the slope of the second line, negative a2 over b sub 2. So negative, negative cancel out, then rearrange, interchange position. So a1 over a2 equals b1 over b2, so that we can easily recall conditions for parallel lines. Simply slopes equal, but this is the easier one. The ratio of corresponding coefficients of x equals ratio of coefficients of y correspondingly. So that's it. That's the condition for parallel lines. Examples are the following. So we have 2x minus 5y plus 10 equals 0 and 4x minus 10y plus 7 equals 0. Obviously, the coefficients are proportional. 2 over 4, 1/2, negative 5 over negative 10. It's also 1/2. That's why they are parallel. Another example, 2x plus 5 equals 0 and 7x minus 1 equals 0 are parallel, even if there's no y. These are vertical lines, so that's why they are parallel. Another example would be 8x plus 4y minus 5 equals 0 and 2x plus y plus 12 equals 0. 8 over 2 is 4, 4 over 1 is 4. So they are parallel. Then conditions for perpendicular lines. Remember, the product of the slopes is negative 1. So that is the slope of the first, negative a1 over b1, times the slope of the second, negative a2 over b2, is negative 1. So m1, m2 equals negative 1. m1 is negative a1 over B1, and M2 is negative A2 over B2 equals negative 1. The negative negative is positive, so A1, A2 equals negative of B1, B2. Then transposing to the left, that means that the sum of the product of corresponding coefficients must be 0 for two lines to be perpendicular to each other. So that's the result. It's easy to remember also the sum of the product of corresponding coefficients is 0 for the two lines to be perpendicular, and for parallel lines, the ratio of corresponding coefficients equal. So examples are the following: 2x plus 8y plus 1 equals 0, and 4x minus y plus 5 equals 0. So 2 times 4 is 8 plus 8 times negative 1, 0. They are perpendicular. 5x plus 3y plus 11 equals 0, and 3x minus 5y plus 6 equals 0. Remember from high school that when the two lines you interchange coefficients and their sign between them is the opposite, like this, then they are perpendicular. But it's best that 5 times 3, 15, plus 3 times negative 5, 0, they are indeed perpendicular. 2x plus 3 equals 0, and 3y minus 7 equals 0 are also perpendicular. The first is vertical, the second one is horizontal, though it does not apply in this case. It applies because 2 times the other line has no x term, so 2 times 0, then plus, let us say, negative 3 times 0 equals 0. They are perpendicular lines. So in general, if you have ax plus by plus c sub 1 equals 0 and ax plus by plus c sub 2 equals 0, they are parallel if they are parallel for this case because the corresponding coefficients are equal also. And a over a is 1, b over b is 1. They are parallel. For perpendicular lines, we have ax plus by plus c1 equals 0, and bx minus ay plus c2 equals 0. So they are perpendicular for this case. Then this is the fifth standard form, and the last form, normal form. So we have here a line ax plus by plus c equals 0. Then it has distance from the origin. We denote the distance as p. This p makes an angle of theta with a with a positive x-axis. So the slope of p is, in this case, tangent of theta. And since p and this original line are perpendicular to each other, the product of their slopes is negative 1. So if the slope of p is tangent theta, the slope of the line is negative cotangent of theta. Then we have another line parallel to the given line, and it passes through x1, y1. So the equation of that line is ax plus by equals ax1 plus by1. You just copy the two terms here, then equate it to a, because it passes through x1 and y1, then you just substitute x1 for x and y1 for y. Then if the line is in the second quadrant, third quadrant, fourth quadrant, it doesn't matter. For instance, if the line is in the second quadrant, that's line P. Its angle it makes with the positive x-axis is obtuse. So the slope is again tangent of that angle. It has negative slope, and this line would be will have positive slope. It is obvious it is inclined up to the right, and that's it. Slope of p is tangent of theta. The slope of the line is negative a over b in general. Remember, negative coefficient of x divided by coefficient of y. And we interpret this as the negative of cotangent of theta. If we draw, it is also the negative of cotangent theta because it is the negative reciprocal of the slope of p. So tangent theta, therefore, because this is a over b equals cotangent of theta, and cotangent of theta is 1 over tangent theta. So that means tangent of theta is b over a. And we form this triangle. The slope, the angle is theta. Opposite is b. The adjacent side is a from this definition. And the hypotenuse is plus minus square root of this a squared plus b squared. So there's a sign preceded for this radical because a may be negative, b may be negative also. And tangent theta may be negative also. From the general form of equation of a line, so ax plus by plus c equals 0, transposing c to the right, so and dividing everything by plus minus square root of a squared plus b squared. You can do that because all terms are divided by this. After we transpose c to the right, it becomes negative c, then divide the same thing. And this should be equal to, from this triangle form, a over plus minus square root of a squared plus b squared is cosine of theta, and this one is sine theta. So x cosine theta plus y sine theta equals negative c over square root of a squared plus b squared. So we interpret from considering this line again, the y-intercept is b, so this is 0 comma b, and sine theta equals, considering the original line, this one, so if this is theta, this is 90 degrees minus theta, therefore this is also theta, right? And the angle of inclination is equal to the angle between the vertical and the line. So inclination of P, this line is perpendicular to P, then the angle between that line and the vertical is also theta. So we have a right triangle here. In this right triangle, we define sine theta, which is opposite, which is P, divided by hypotenuse, which is B. Again, this is a right triangle because P and the line are perpendicular to each other. Sine theta is opposite P divided by hypotenuse B. So that's why we have sine theta equals P over B here. And we learned that B is negative C over B, and sine theta from here is B over plus minus square root of A squared plus B squared. So sine theta equals P over B. B is negative C over B. Replacing sine theta by its equivalent. So P is negative C over B sine theta, and sine theta, remember, is B over plus minus square root of A squared plus B squared. We can cancel out B, and therefore P is negative C over plus minus square root of A squared plus B squared. From the equation earlier, we left ax cosine theta plus y sine theta equals negative c over plus minus square root of a squared plus b squared. So the normal form is x cosine theta plus y sine theta equals p, where p is the distance of the line from the origin. So that's the normal form, that's the fifth form. So since we established formula for p, distance of the line ax plus by plus c equals 0 from the origin, then let's just continue it. So that's the distance of the line from the origin. Then we have to follow some rules here. So if the point lies above, then the sign chosen here, it should be positive. If it lies below, we have to use negative, just like this. So that's x1, y1. The equation of this line is ax plus by equals ax1 plus by1, and that's the value of the constant when transposed to the right. Then we have here the distance of this line from the origin P, the distance of this line or this point from the origin, or that line from the origin would be P1 as shown. So therefore the distance between parallel lines can be derived. It is P1 minus P. So this is P1 minus P, and since distance is negative c over plus minus square root of a square plus b square for this line, while for this line, this is already the constant transposed to the right, all you have to do is divide that by plus minus square root of a square plus b square. That's P1. And for P, it's this value. So plus ax1 plus by1 over plus minus square root of a square plus b square, that's P1 minus P, which is negative of c over plus minus square root of a square plus b square. So this Tan's formula is ax1 plus by1 plus c over plus minus square root of a square plus b square. So we have rules here, but if you are asked to find purely distance, then you may put absolute value bars. Don't mind the sign here anymore. Just put absolute value bars. So that's distance from a point to a line, and the rules would be there you put plus minus in the numerator quantity, then the sign of the radical is the same sign as the sign of b. So we put plus minus in the numerator, and the ruling is this: use plus if the point lies above or to the right of the line, minus if otherwise. Then for the sign of the radical, it is the same sign as the sign of b. That's the ruling. But if we are asked to find the pure distance, don't mind the sign, just put absolute value bars. So that's why I revise it into this formula here. But if we find equations of lines involving this concept and principles, then we follow the sign convention. Then for pure distance, so before distance between parallel lines, then it is absolute value of c sub 1 minus c sub 2 over square root of a square plus b square. Because parallel lines will have the same terms here, definitely it will be cancelled. They just differ in the constants. So again, the ax1 plus by1 for parallel lines will vanish because they have the same first two terms. They only differ in the constants. So this is the distance between parallel lines.